Hi, everybody. Welcome back to MyFintelligence. Today, we're doing another episode of Land the Job with Jonathan. Jonathan had an internship with Scotiabank, which he's going to be telling us about, and then we're going to be talking about everything recruiting.
Hi, guys.
John, could you tell us about what your internship position was for this summer?
Yes, absolutely. So I was a partnerships coordinator for the wealth management team at Scotiabank. So essentially, what we did were we were connecting high net worth retail clients to the respective Scotiabank wealth management arms and making sure that we were referring them to the one that we felt they would most succeed in.
Awesome. And could you walk us through your recruitment process?
Absolutely. So my recruitment process was a long and grueling one. Where at the end of it, this job almost landed on me. I was working very, very hard. I thought I was going to be doing sales and trading for quite some time. For me, the recruitment process was a lot of education. It was learning a lot of Excel, learning a lot of modeling, that, and then a lot of case prep. So I did probably 1 to 2 calls per week with, industry professionals throughout, maybe the fall and winter. And I didn't land anything until late spring. So this particular job opened up through one of the people who I had been networking with. What ended up happening is somebody who I had networked with reached out and said that the wealth team at Scotia might need some help, and would I be interested? And I was like, absolutely. Like, who can you put me in contact with? So I met with the manager informally, and we just had a chat for a while, and that went really well. He was a nice guy. He liked hockey. We could talk about sports. It was nice to, put a face to what might be coming. And then we had one interview over the phone. It would have been in person, but this was right around the time that, COVID started coming. So we had one interview over the phone, and that was it. The interview was a mix of behavioral and technical questions, but the technical questions weren't your average technical questions like what you hear about in, like, let's say, an investment banking interview. He wasn't asking me to break down any statements. It was more like, can you do a sales pitch for me? What he actually asked me to do was like sell him a kite.
Okay, that's interesting.
And that was very fun. I had never, I certainly hadn't prepped for that, and I've never done anything like that. So it was really interesting. One thing I like a lot about Scotiabank interviews, and I also had one recently, is that the questions are a lot more outside of the box. They're not all that interested in what you've rehearsed. They're a lot more interested in like getting down to actually knowing you.
Yeah, and who you are as a person. It's so interesting because I was applying for Scotia's investment banking summer 2021 position, and in the resume section, they were actually like, don't submit your resume. Actually do this personality test instead and attach a cover letter. And I was like, okay, well, this is something that I've never done before. Didn't expect to do it with investment banking specifically, but yeah, it's really good to know that they care about your personality and your fit.
Yeah, my impression of the campus team at Scotia is that they're very, very invested in, getting the right people, not getting the right resumes.
Yeah, and getting to know you. Yeah. And I've actually noticed that their team is like very, I guess the right word would be humble. Like yeah, you don't see that in
down to earth, approachable. It's very easy to talk to them.
Yeah. So guys, don't be afraid to reach out to Scotia people is what we're trying to get at.
Campus recruitment team, just look up Scotia talent acquisitions or campus recruiting on LinkedIn, and they're all super, super approachable.
What question did they throw at you, and how did you handle it?
So one of the questions that really threw me, because I was working on my elevator pitch. Everyone talks about being able to describe yourself in 30 seconds or less. They asked me to do that while including nothing that was on my resume. So that is a tough one. That one threw me because I'm like, I put everything on my resume that I can, and now I can't talk about any of it. So that was a really cool one. I liked that question, and it allowed me to kind of, talk more about my friends, my dog, just the things that you're not going to really like bring up on a resume. The other behavioral questions were a little bit more about who I am as a person. So let's say, I think I had one question about, tell me a time where you were on a team and something went wrong, and how did you handle that? Stuff like that. That was a pretty typical one. And then the other questions were more centered around the job. And then also, why this job? Of course, you always have to be able to answer why this job, why this place.
Yeah, makes sense. And now switching over to the technicals, was there a technical question that specifically stood out to you, was a little bit harder to answer, and how did you handle it if you didn't know the answer?
Specific interview, it was no problem. He asked me a couple questions about how I would model something because I mentioned that I had done a lot of modeling and I ran him through it, how I would have done it in Excel, how I would have broken down this kind of statement, and he was happy with that. I will say that I've had a technical question before that completely stumped me, and the thing you have to remember is that they don't care that much that you get the answer. They know the answer. They don't need you to know the answer, but they want to see your thinking. So if you're stumped by a technical question, don't just say, I don't know. A great way to go about it would be to say something like, well, I'm not sure I understand this totally, but let me just walk you through kind of my thought process on this. Make sure you're stating assumptions, make sure you're asking a lot of questions. They're willing to give you more information. You just have to ask. I think one of the times I couldn't think of a rate of return because they didn't provide me like the proper, or what I thought was the proper amount of information to calculate like the weighted average cost of capital. So I just assumed a 12%. I was like, across the industry, we tend to see around 12% for this. And they were totally fine with that. And so, I guess if there's a stumper, just don't give up, but also don't just sit there grinding your gears trying to figure it out. Like just ask questions, gain more information, and let them see how you think.
Yeah, it is really important to showcase that you are a logical thinker and you're, not just throwing things out. And what did you do to prepare for the interview?
The thing about this interview was I was fairly certain this was my last shot. I had thrown out a lot of applications to a lot of different places and either not heard back or gotten turned down, or gotten to a couple interviews and then gotten turned down. So I was very, very worried. So for this interview, I prepped a lot, and I attended a marquee group thing about nailing the interview.
And yep, definitely been there, throwing out the resumes and not hearing things back.
I know it's
Yeah.
There's a lot of people applying.
Yeah.
It's a really competitive industry, and almost everybody who's going to be watching this and applying, I'm sure, was a big fish in a small pond at one point, but like that's just not the case anymore. And you got to, learn to kind of brush it off and apply to the next thing.
Yeah, I love that attitude. Yeah, don't give up. And I always tell everybody this, just as much as they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing them. You don't want to be working at a job or in a place that you're going to be miserable, where your values don't align with them. So, if you don't get picked, just pick it as, this was not the right place for me, and just,
Absolutely. And try to think honestly about that. I mean, obviously everybody wants to land something, but if you are lucky enough to have a couple of options, think very carefully about, where you want to be, who you want to be around. If you're hoping to turn this into a full-time job, like, you better not hate it. Don't apply for something that you hate. Like, that would suck.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to be miserable. Yeah. So any tips for students interviewing for this position this summer, or the spring, I should say?
If you're interviewing for my exact position, you've got a really great manager, a really nice team, and just be yourself, be genuine. I think that you'd be doing yourself a disservice to show up too prepped. Don't come across as a robot. Just have a conversation. Remember that an interview is a conversation, and it should go both ways. Come with questions and, know how to sell a kite, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. I definitely learned a lot. I hope you guys did as well. And make sure to like this video, subscribe. Go check out John's Day in the Life if you haven't yet. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, guys.